Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk in detail about tuning Ableton to 432, and I'm going to give you some tools for micro tuning in general. At the end of this video you should be able to tune any software synthesizer or virtual instrument that you have in Ableton Live, regardless of if it's capable of native tuning or not. So first thing that I want to do is just discuss very quickly what 432 tuning is and why you might be interested in tuning to 432. If it is something that you're interested in, then it's probably something that you've either done some research about or should do some research about personally. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the history of tuning and what 432 means, outside of just the sound design aspects of 432. All of that is subject to interpretation anyways, so we'll just focus on what we can know and see. So first of all, I have Massive loaded up here with just a basic sine wave. You can see pushing through. Nothing really going on. I'm going to just reset this for demonstration purposes. But yeah, it's just a sine wave pumping through that envelope there. And so it sounds like this. Sounds like this. And then I also loaded up Ocelot here with a scope, an oscilloscope, just so that I can explain some basic principles real quick here. So there you can see the sine wave itself being generated, and I can scale this up and down depending to look at the image. But in any case, I'm trying to get it to freeze. There we go. You can see, and we have like these peaks and valleys. Some of you are probably familiar with this image of a sine wave, but some of you might not know what these represent. The distance in between each of these peaks is called the frequency, and in the case of a sine wave, this is the most fundamental sound that we can have. There's no formants or other peaks in the sound. It's just the frequency of the note. And so in the case of this sine wave, each of these peaks, the distance between them is what makes different notes. So for instance, if I play here at this octave, you can see that we have this certain frequency. Now let's say I play 2 octaves lower, you can see that our image spreads out and that the frequency is much slower. So that makes sense. And as I was doing there playing octaves, at each octave the frequency actually doubles mathematically. So basically at 2 octaves lower, 1 octave above, each of these peaks would, 2 of them would fit in one of these. See? And then again. But it's a relevant point for later to remember that mathematically an octave is a doubling of these frequencies. Okay, so this all becomes important when we're talking about tuning, because tuning is about the relative frequencies between notes in a scale. So when I play 2 notes together, let's just say, that's a better one because the frequencies are tighter, so we can see that there's actually 2 waves taking place here, right? There's the waveform itself, and then there's the waveform that the 2 notes make together, and in this case you can see it moving kind of oddly. it has like a randomness about it, how it moves in time. And what this is demonstrating is what people call subtle chaos, which is what you get in 440 tuning. This randomness of the relativity of the notes, because they're mathematically imperfect. That is to say that the relative frequency from this note to that note, if you could look at them in, there's probably a good way to demonstrate this. I'm not sure how exactly, other than to just show you them combined, moving sporadically. But the point is that they're not in they're not synchronized with each other mathematically. They're not mathematical relatives of each other. Like this frequency doesn't bisect this frequency evenly, mathematically speaking. So that's why you get that randomness. What this oscilloscope is showing you is a freeze in time at the point of generation. So right there is where the waveform is being generated at this end of the oscilloscope, and it's moving through time. But if I showed you it, if I showed you the actual real time, it looks like this. And you can still see how the movement is taking place here, how it's moving through time. But this is just a better, easier way to show it. Okay, so that's what that is. But anyways, now what we're going to do is show you the first tool that you can use for any synthesizer whatsoever, whether it's massive or anything soft synth that receives pitch bend. And this is our Micro Tuner 2.2. It is made by RobTech and enhanced by these people here, whatever the heck. You can download this for free. Just type into Google Max for Live Micro Tuner and look for this one. There's a couple of them. I have a couple of them, but this is the best one because it allows you to set the pitch bend range specifically to what you want. So if we open up Massive here, we'll just set this pitch bend to be something standard. We could set it right now to 5 and then -5, but typically I will be in that range, and that's why I like this one, because I can set it to do that as well. And then here in the cent value, obviously it's going to be -32 to take us to 432 tuning. I don't know where my cursor went. Maybe you can see it on the video, but it is gone. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now, presumably Massive is tuned to 432, and it sounds like it is. So if I show this to you, what I should do real quick, I'll delete this. So we're tuned to 440. And you recognize that image of the kind of randomness. And so now if I undo that, now we're tuned back to 432. And you can see that now there is no randomness. The image just very evenly moves across the screen here. And that's because we have aligned the frequencies mathematically so that there's no subtle chaos, there's no randomness to the overall wave of relative frequencies interacting. When you think about these frequencies, it's the same reason that we would use sidechain compression on a kick and a sub. You can see that, and no matter what intervals we play now at 432, even a second has just this very uniform motion to it as it moves through through the scope here, because the frequencies are mathematical intervals. They're perfect intervals, and unlike at 440, where there is this misalignment of these waves. When you think about these waves as like 2 or 3 of them interacting, if they're not mathematical intervals of each other, they're going to be crashing into each other and colliding up and down and phasing each other out at different points, which is very subtle, but that's what you hear, is the phasing out of these frequencies as they cross modulate and do weird things to each other. And that's why I tune to 432, because with all of your sounds frequencies lined up mathematically, it allows for a lot more frequencies and resonances to come through your music. So that is just a quick demonstration of why I tune to 432 and kind of visually what that is. And then also this micro tuner, I highly recommend that you download this micro tuner. This is what I use as my primary tool for tuning to 432 in Ableton Live. So, now that that's all done, I want to show you something else that you might or might not be familiar with, and this is the case in a lot of modern soft synths, and I think we're going to start seeing this a lot more. An example of this is Absinthe. Let's see, I'm trying to think of others. Albino has it. Serum has it. There's a number of them that do. But where is it? Oh yeah, right here under Perform in Absinthe, you can see right here there's this tuning tab, and if you click on that, you can add your own tunings. You can do this by downloading this program called Scala, I believe, and there are you can create your own tunings in Scala and export them as a .tune or .scale file, and that's what these all are. I think these are all .tune files, .tun, and .scale files are probably also accepted in Absinthe. But those are the two native tuning files that soft synths will accept to change their native tuning. So this has all kinds of different micro tunings, but for just intonation 432, we are going to just select, alright, so Pythagorean, now we should be, but we are not. So, I may have told you wrong. I obviously did, but anyways, there are a whole bunch of tunings in here. You could continue screwing around until you found the one that you desired, but anymore, I don't really use this for tuning to, oh yeah, Pythagorean. Of course I told you wrong, that's not just intonation, but anyways, they do call them all kinds of different things. Some of them, like for instance, complete. Oh, contact is part of complete. For instance, this one, it's just right here. Then you can just tune it to 432. This doesn't really allow you to do like the circle of fifths, for instance, as a tuning, but we'll talk more about that in another video. And let's see, one that is really cool, if it will work for me. My eye lock is sometimes a little sketchy. Oh, okay. It's going to work today. This is Mode 2 Ethno, and I think it's right here. There's a couple, like this is, I think, yeah, by geography, and you can select just by geographic tunings, but then there's just by scale system. And these have some overlap, but there's also a little bit of, there's some different ones in here. But just like I look at like how many tunings there are, native tunings in here. I've never seen so many native tunings. It's kind of crazy. Anyways, So that's also available in a lot of modern synthesizers, and we're probably going to see that a lot more. And like I said, this is your friend right here, and that proved to be true. I don't know why I was thinking Pythagorean was just intonation. That is simply false. But uh, there are lots of different ways that they name 432 just intonation tuning. So anyways, this is your friend in all tuning. For all your tuning purposes, I highly recommend using this tuner or a tuner of some kind, especially when you're tuning oscillators, as I probably mentioned in the Ableton video. Mathematically, 964 is not correct. It should be probably 978 or something like that. I guess that would be true. Or 968. Yeah, 968. Mathematically, it should be 968 because we subtract 32 cents, and this represents cents. But that just doesn't align with what's actually real. So, yeah, when you're tuning, use a tuner. That seems kind of obvious, but for some reason it just isn't really. Okay, so let's see. Now we've talked about the Max for Live patch. We've talked about tuning oscillators, and we've talked about using native tunings. Now, what I would like to show you real quick is the difference between pitch shifting and frequency shifting, and why frequency shifting is not actually tuning to 432. So to demonstrate this, I will just pull out we could do this with like a sample, for instance. Like if you were sampling a sound, maybe like sampling somebody playing a guitar or something, this would be the same effect, because essentially what frequency shifting is changing the pitch, the the frequencies itself. We're shifting them down the spectrum, but it's changing the pitch of the sounds after they've been generated, rather than as they're being generated. And that's the primary difference between frequency shifting and pitch shifting. So in this case, we're using a frequency shifter. If you were using a piece of audio like I don't know, we'll just take one out of here, because the Laya project is pretty awesome. So yeah, I'll just use this vocal real quick. Ooh, that's really loud. I apologize. We'll unwarp it. Okay, so now if you come down here to this transpose and you shift it down like this, or if you were to maybe say you wanted this to be in 432, and so you frequency shift it 32 cents. This is not actually in 432, and if I was going to use this or sample this in my music, this is what I would do, is detune it this way, because it's the best that you can get. But this is not creating the effect of aligning the frequencies in the same way that you do with 432 tuning generated at the source. So this is the same effect here. Frequency shifting like this. If you were to take it here and go -8 hertz and just shift it, this would sound exactly the same. Let me just demonstrate that for the sake of it. So if I take this tuning off of here, I'll just show you. That sounds just like this. Right, so anyways, point being, this frequency shifting is the same as this frequency shifting. So, okay, if you were to just detune your audio clip It is frequency shifting. That's the point. So now we're going to use a frequency shifter here on this operator. And real quick, I'm going to sidetrack and show you this Voxingo span and another way that you can check your tunings. Okay, so back to 440 hertz. If we play an A, and I can see my cross, you can see if I line that up right in the middle of the peak, that down here on the right hand or on the left hand side of Voxingo, it tells you, well, now it's jumped up there depending on where you put this thing, but there it goes. You can see what the frequency is, and if I line it right up, if I line it right in the middle, you can see that it's at 440 hertz. Now, of course, if I do this one, you can see lined up in the middle, we're at 432. So that's a good way to visually check yourself, and I am showing you that because I want to show you the principle I was trying to demonstrate earlier, which is that octaves we talked about are perfect doublings of the frequency. So if I play this A at 432, we can see there that we are at 432. Now, if I double the frequency by playing an octave higher, it should be at 864, right? Which 865, that's just because at this point the pixels on the screen are so small, but you can say we know that we're at 864 by showing you that. Now, this is why frequency shifting is not correct. So if I take this Voxingo, oh, and I'll just show you this. This is actually, I like Voxingo better, but we're going to not use it because I told you we were going to use free things. So this is the one that comes with the Melda Productions pack. And if I just play a note, it'll actually line it up for me. So that says 432. That says 864. How nice. And that's 216. So just like everything should be. Now, if we copy this analyzer over to our frequency shifted operator. Now this one, you can see we haven't done anything to the tuning. This is tuned to 440 with -8 hertz, which should in theory make A 432, right? And it does. See, A's at 432. And so that at A is correct, but now if we double the frequency, it's 871. Remember, it's supposed to be 864. Now, why is it so much higher? Why is it 871? Well, because we've actually taken an oscillator that is at 440 at 880, you see. 881, I guess. It's a little sharp. But it's at 881, and now we've actually subtracted 8 hertz from that. Which I don't know why we're getting these weird. This got to be this this particular analyzer, but it's close enough to demonstrate the point. This is 432. An octave of that should be 864, but it is not, and therefore throughout the spectrum we've proven that the frequencies are not correct. They're not actually aligned the way that they should be with frequency shifting. And that's the same, as I demonstrated before, as when you detune your audio clips. So fundamentally, in order to tune to 432 and get the effect of tuning to 432, you have to create the pitch change at the oscillator stage itself. And in this case, with operator, we have the method that I showed you before. You just detune the oscillators, and now with a at 432, the octave is at 864, and so we know that everything is okie dokie and we are getting the effect that we want. So I think that's pretty much everything for tuning to 432 in Ableton Live. I think this has probably gone on for quite a while, but I wanted to really cover everything that you need as far as tuning, micro tuning, and get you started on thinking about some other possibilities for how to tune your music electronically in Ableton. So I hope this has been useful and informative, and I am more than happy to bring this information to you guys, because I don't think that there are very good resources on the internet yet for this information. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment and I will more than likely make a video about your question.